The first time Maya Chen saw the device, she knew she wasn't supposed to understand it. No human was. That was the point of Veridian technology, incomprehensible by design. Their machines operated on principles that seemed to actively resist human analysis, interfaces that shifted and reconfigured whenever studied too closely. It was technological gatekeeping at its finest, ensuring humanity remained dependent on Veridian guidance since first contact 8 years ago. Maya ran her fingers along the casing of the quantum regulator, feeling the subtle vibrations beneath its opalescent surface. The lab around her was silent at 3 in the morning, just how she liked it. No oversight committee breathing down her neck. No Veridian advisors watching with those unnerving, multifaceted eyes. Just her and the impossible.
You're not actually magic.
She whispered to the device.
Nothing is.
Her colleagues had given up months ago. Theoretical physicist Dr. Abrams had declared that the regulator operated on principles fundamentally incompatible with human cognition. The Veridians had nodded their elongated heads in that patronizing way, offering to allocate a suitable operator for the planetary defense grid they were so generously building for Earth. A defense grid humanity couldn't control, maintain, or understand. Maya hadn't bought it. Not for a second. She'd been repairing things since she was 6, when she'd fixed her grandfather's antique pocket watch with tweezers and stubborn determination. Engineering wasn't just her profession. It was how she processed the world. Systems had rules, patterns, logic, even if you couldn't see them yet. The Veridians had made one critical mistake in their technological superiority complex. They'd underestimated human stubbornness, specifically Maya's. For 6 months, she'd been smuggling the regulator out after hours, scanning it with modified equipment, testing reactions to various stimuli, and building a meticulous database of its behaviors. Where others saw random responses, she tracked micropatterns. Where conventional analysis failed, she invented new methodologies. Tonight was different. Tonight, she had a theory. Maya slipped on the neural interface gloves she'd designed, thin, silvery mesh that extended her bioelectric field. Standard equipment couldn't interact with Veridian tech. Their machines seemed to recognize and reject artificial probes, but human bioelectricity was something the Veridians hadn't fully accounted for.
Let's try this dance again,
She murmured, activating her custom scanner. The holographic display hummed to life, painting the dark lab with ghostly blue light. Maya began the sequence she'd developed, not trying to command the device, but to communicate with it. The gloves translated her neural impulses into patterns that mimicked Veridian brain activity. For 15 minutes, nothing happened. Then the regulator shuddered. The opalescent surface rippled like disturbed water. Geometric patterns emerged, spiraling and interlocking in impossible configurations. Most researchers would have recoiled at this point, intimidated by the alien complexity. Maya leaned closer.
There you are.
She whispered.
You're speaking, aren't you? Not just operating, actually speaking.
Another hour passed in silent communion, Maya adjusting her inputs, recording the outputs, iterating her approach. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the lab's cool air. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the electrical feedback. At 4:37 a.m., she tried a different syntactic structure in her command sequence. The regulator split open like a flower. Inside wasn't circuitry as humans understood it, not processors or wiring or anything recognizable. It was something like crystal, something like liquid, something like light, components that seemed to exist in multiple phases simultaneously. But Maya understood it now, not completely, but enough.
It's not incompatible with human cognition.
She said to the empty lab.
It's just a different language.
By dawn, she had control of the regulator. By the end of the week, she understood the principles behind its operation. Within a month, she could replicate them. The Veridians noticed something was wrong when the defense grid's installation suddenly accelerated. Components that had been troublesome began functioning at optimal capacity. Systems that had required constant Veridian oversight now operated independently.
The integration is proceeding more efficiently than projected,
observed Chief Advisor Threll during the monthly progress review. His eyes swiveled toward Maya, who stood quietly among the human engineering team.
Have you altered your approach, Dr. Chen?
Just better teamwork.
She replied with a polite smile.
We're adapting to your methods.
What she didn't mention was exactly how they were adapting, or that she'd created a backdoor into every system, or that she now understood the true purpose of the defense grid, not protection, but subjugation. The grid wasn't designed to keep threats out, but to keep humanity in. Maya had discovered the truth by accident. While exploring the operating principles of the quantum regulator, she'd found command sequences that made no sense for defensive operations. Control parameters designed to manipulate Earth's communications, energy grid, and even atmospheric conditions. The Veridians weren't building a shield, they were building a cage.
We're grateful for your assistance.
Director Williams told the Veridian delegation.
Maya's team has been particularly impressed by the elegance of your designs.
The Veridians inclined their heads in acknowledgement, but Threll's gaze lingered on Maya again. She met his multifaceted eyes without flinching. The next day, her lab access was revoked.
Security protocols.
Her supervisor explained with obvious discomfort.
The Veridians have expressed concerns about unauthorized research activities.
Maya nodded as if she understood, as if she accepted this decision. She handed over her credentials without protest. It was already too late for the Veridians. That night, from her apartment 20 miles from the facility, Maya activated her modified neural interface gloves and opened a connection to the defense grid. The back door was still there, untouched. The Veridians hadn't found it because they hadn't believed it could exist, a human workaround to their impenetrable technology.
Let's see who's really in control,
She whispered. She sent the command sequence she'd prepared, not to disable the grid, but to reconfigure it, to transform it from a tool of oppression into actual protection. The grid's true capabilities were far beyond what the Veridians had disclosed. It could indeed defend Earth, if properly directed. For 30 minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Then her secured phone rang.
Maya, it's Williams. Something's happening with the grid. The Veridians are, well, they're panicking. Systems are changing configurations. They can't override it.
That's strange.
She said calmly.
Maybe there's a compatibility issue with Earth's electromagnetic field.
They're demanding to speak with you. They think you've done something.
I'll come in.
She said.
But Director, you might want to assemble the Security Council before I get there.
By morning, everything had changed. The grid had reconfigured itself completely, locking the Veridians out of their own creation. Maya stood before the hastily assembled Security Council and the Veridian delegation, explaining in precise detail what she had discovered and what she had done.
The grid now functions exactly as we were told it would.
She concluded.
A defensive system protecting Earth from external threats, including,
She added, looking directly at Chief Advisor Threll.
threats disguised as allies.
The evidence was irrefutable. Maya's documentation of the grid's true purpose was exhaustive. The Veridians didn't even attempt to deny it. Denial wasn't in their cultural framework when confronted with absolute proof.
You could not possibly have understood our technology,
Threll said, his voice a modulation of clicks and whistles through the translator.
It is beyond human comprehension.
Maya smiled thinly.
A common mistake, assuming difference means superiority. Your technology isn't incomprehensible, it's just different, and differences can be understood with enough patience.
Within a week, the Veridian Advisory Mission was expelled from Earth. The defense grid, now genuinely protective and under human control, ensured they left peacefully. The balance of power had shifted irrevocably. Maya found herself elevated to head a new international agency, the Bureau of Xenotechnological Integration. Her first official act was to establish a transparent research protocol for studying and adapting the Veridian systems Earth had inherited. Her unofficial first act was to begin preparations for humanity's first independent foray into deep space, using principles reverse-engineered from the defense grid. The Veridians weren't the only advanced species out there, and Earth needed to be ready.
They never understood what makes humans different.
She told her assembled team during their first briefing.
They saw our technical limitations but missed our adaptive capacity. They built their superiority on keeping secrets, but humans have been solving mysteries since we first looked up at the stars.
She brought up a holographic display of the modified defense grid, now a glittering network encircling Earth.
This isn't the end of our story with advanced species,
She said.
It's barely the beginning, but next time we'll be speaking as equals.
3 years later, when the first human ship utilizing Veridian-derived technology departed for Proxima Centauri, Maya Chen watched from mission control with quiet satisfaction. The vessel bore a single phrase emblazoned on its hull, written in both human languages and the angular script of the Veridians. Understanding changes everything. Chief Advisor Threll, now Minister of External Relations on the Veridian homeworld, received the transmission of the human vessel's launch with resigned acknowledgement. The Council had been correct, after all. Humanity was indeed a species of concern. Not because they were violent or unpredictable, though they were certainly both, but because they refused to accept limitations, even ones written into the fabric of technology itself.
Note this in the permanent record.
He told his subordinates.
Humanity has achieved Type 1 integration in 3 standard cycles, not the projected 15. All encounters to be approached with caution and respect.
After his subordinates departed, Threll added a personal notation to the file, one that would be sealed for 100 cycles.
They don't just use technology, they bond with it. And anything they can bond with, they can change. We may have awakened something we cannot control.
As if in answer, the distant defense grid around Earth pulsed once, a brief flash visible even from their monitoring station at the edge of the solar system. Not a warning, just a reminder. Humanity was watching, and they understood far more than anyone had given them credit for.